Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
It's been a rough week.
It's been a rough one.
It's been a rough week on everybody around here.
Yes.
I mean, and
Disaster week.
Yeah, Derico week. And not the first time I've heard that word and seen the results, but yeah, it's been a rough week. But you know what? We're coming out the other side.
Yeah.
So I checked this morning, and according to Evergy, everybody's power in our area is back on. So
Thank goodness. You know, it's so funny how often we take for granted the small things in life that we are able to just have. I mean, when you click on a light switch, the light switch comes on. Or the light comes on, you enjoy the air conditioning or the heating for that matter during whatever given time of year it is, and then when all of that goes away and there's no internet and there's no way to keep your groceries, I mean, I even heard somebody say that one of the bigger grocery stores here in the community had to throw away like 90% of their stuff.
Yeah, and down in Halstead, they had to throw away just about everything. I mean, it was nuts. The ice cream just melted right in the freezer.
Yeah.
They didn't have backup generator, and it was really bad. I talked to one of the folks that's in charge of restocking that place, and they were just, yeah. So it's been a rough week for some people, but we're going to come out the other side.
Well, and I guess the question that I have too is there is a little bit of debate, Chad, whether it was a tornado or whether it was just straight line winds or a combination of the two or whatnot. But
so Halstead Fire EMS believes that they saw a tornado, and I did see a video of something that looked a lot like a tornado.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to discount the notion that a tornado was a part of this.
Yeah.
But I've seen both. Not to be that I'm going to toot my own horn thing. I'm a Heston tornado survivor. There's a bunch of us around here. We went through that. We know what tornadoes are all about.
Yeah.
And straight up, this one just it didn't feel like a tornado to me.
Yeah.
And the weather service labeled this a Derico. And I've seen, again, not the first time I've been through that process. It's the first time here.
Yeah.
This is the first one for us. But, in my home state, there was a Derico that just absolutely wiped out a community. It has the possibility to do that. And what you don't get in a Derico is completely destroyed houses.
Yeah.
It's the roof is gone.
Well, it's unbelievable.
That kind of thing.
I mean, where the north side of town where I live seemed like much of it was untouched. I can't say that for everybody because there were people without power.
Yeah, my neighborhood came out of this. The only downed branch that I found in my neighborhood was a dead one on my side yard. Nobody really seemed to suffer a whole lot.
Yeah.
We just were out of the path,
and you go to the south side of town, and it was like,
honestly,
whoa.
I'm very thankful of that.
Yeah.
I have spent a lot of time driving through the south side of town.
Yeah.
And they got hammered.
Yeah.
But again, where this is different, and I think Mike Anderson really described it really well during the commission meeting. I think you were there this week.
Absolutely.
That where this is different is that in a tornado situation, you've got this path of destruction, and right within that path, I mean, it's bad. Everything, houses are gone.
Yes.
Right? In straight line wind / Derico, it's not like that. That damage is just, number one, houses are not gone usually, but your damage swath is much wider, and they're going into Burton and Halstead assuming that everything has been damaged.
Yeah, I know. When he said that, I thought, wow. I mean, Halstead, hearts and minds, prayers go out to you. I mean, what a resilient community. I know the community chaplain response team was activated, and that was, I'm going to say, more or less ground zero. because they were feeding and watering, and then there was all kinds of different organizations that were there on hand, partnering with them or them partnering with them, however you want to look at it, and just together coming together and just servicing the needs of the individuals that were affected through the storm.
Yeah.
And I had to say this. I put out a post on social media, and and I also got to see Chad driving around. I was working, and he was working, and just my brother, unfortunately, a tree fell on the top of his house and dang near ripped off the back of it. I mean, it just a complete disaster area. I mean, I call them ground zero because everywhere in their neighborhood was just demolished.
Lots and lots of down trees.
Just demolished. But anywho, I put out a post, and it said something to the effect, and I'll paraphrase myself, which is that oftentimes in our community, when everything is going fine, we get hung up on small stuff with each other. We talked last week about social media and how people will come out of the woodworks to say something negative or whatever the case may be, and it's really all small potatoes type of a thing. But when disaster struck, our community came together, and I mean everyone came together. It was almost like if you were not affected, you were going to the danger area and helping. You were cutting up stuff. You were pulling limbs.
And everybody found a role to play, whatever that is.
Yes, whatever it is. Somebody asked me on there, well, what do I do if I can't go and cut up trees and haul trees? It's like, well, go get a couple cases of water, drive around and give it out if you can do that.
Yeah, and when I say everybody had their role and found a role to play, I met a couple of new delivery drivers this week, right? I mean, these are people that kind of dipped their toe in the pool of Uber Eat and DoorDash and whatever else in the past, but never really did a whole lot with it. But I'm telling you what, because of how this whole thing shook down, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the big three is what we will call them, right? Our fast food places were beyond busy. Yeah. And that's where I was meeting those new people, those new drivers. They're like, I don't know what to do. Well, go deliver some food.
Yeah.
Right? Because
one at a time.
We've got, at one time we had 3,000 houses that had no power. They had no way to make their own meals.
That's right.
And you know what? Some of those people were willing to pay to get them, but they needed them brought to them. And so here we are. So everybody they found a role. Yeah. And I saw something on social. I think it was last night that they were gonna put out a donation jar at Carlo's Kitchen so that power guys could go get free lunch. More power to you. Yeah. I mean, seriously.
Absolutely.
I mean, if your role is throwing $5 in there,
do it.
Well done.
Do it.
Yeah,
because it does.
Congrats.
And something like this, we're fortunate because it does take the whole community to get through this. It really does. And
it does.
And I'm telling you, folks, we're not over exaggerating the mass swath of damage and individuals who are affected by this storm. I mean, when the Chaplain Community Response Team was activated, it was, we've got damage in Burton, we've got damage in Halstead, we've got damage in Newton, extensive damage in all three, and everywhere throughout in the country.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so it's like there was a lineup of every community in Harvey County that just got a swath of this. I mean, this was just a major event.
And straight up, event. Within the definition of a derecho, there's minimum requirements for the width and the length, and this thing went for hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
So we grabbed a lot of attention because I think we were probably some of the worst hit, but there's a lot of damage. A lot of it.
Yeah.
And I remember the derecho that hit, it might have been about 5 years ago, that went across the plains of Nebraska and into Iowa, and oh my goodness gracious. I have guys that I went to college with that were in the path of that thing. And I mean, the damage was just, it was very widespread.
Yeah.
You know, and one of those guys that I went to college with, he was really lucky. I mean, it didn't really do much to his house, but it overturned all of his irrigation systems. Right?
Which would be a disaster.
Oh, that's a disaster, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, the good news is that he was able to go home at night and get a shower and cook his supper and watch a little TV and just kind of relax and get away from it, you know, because his power was still there. But you know, that's the way these things work. And you know yeah, and he never called 911. He never called 911 throughout the entire process.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how many people didn't. I say this. One thing when you're talking about emergency response, we're designed as a society and as a community to respond adequately to an event, right? So if Halstead would have been the only one in the bullseye, the resources that would have went there might have been considered adequate. But when you start spreading this out, there's just without having the community get involved to help one another, there's no way that this could be done. I mean, there was cleanup still taking place, Chad.
And it's gonna take us a while.
Yeah.
It's gonna take us a while. There is just so much. You know, the city ain't gonna get all those limbs picked up in a week. It's just not gonna happen.
No, it'll be a few.
And you know, to that point, I checked the Evergy outage map on Sunday night, and
it's like 60-70% of Newton alone, wasn't it?
Well, here's the thing. Kansas was just one big red blob.
Yeah.
And the outages extended all the way into Missouri and almost into Oklahoma. I guess, you know, I want people to come to grips with how widespread and how big this really was.
Yeah.
Just because we don't have the tornado tag on it, that means nothing. I mean, honestly, the damage
worse
is
in some ways, you know.
And the damage to the power grid was extremely widespread. Yeah. Well, to the tune of, and it was Monday afternoon when I checked, and the total numbers for Evergy were still in the 36,000 range.
Jeez Louise.
Okay. 36,000.
That's like the entire population of Harvey County.
And I made the comment that I checked this morning, and it's got us as fully on. I mean, we were at 95% yesterday. There's still outages over by Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this thing was huge.
Yeah, and I saw the city of Newton put out a post that said, it was the communications. It was the communications had put out something on social media saying that people were calling and they wanted their power back on right now. And so I don't think that's a negative thing necessarily. I know there was probably some frustration there, given the fact that some people might have been without power for 4 and 5 days. And as each day passes, you're just like, well, now there I got to throw the food out. Now here I've got it, and it just keeps getting worse. For folks, you know.
And I get the frustration. I just wish people would come to an understanding of who's ultimately responsible. When you're tying up the phone line, because and this is a real call, you're tying up a 911 dispatcher because you want them to tell Cox to get to your house and get the internet on, even though your electricity isn't on and you won't be able to use your internet because you don't have any electricity. This is a quote. Well, that's beside the point. I need my internet. Okay, when you're doing that dispatcher is on the phone with you. They're not on the phone with me.
Yeah.
They're not on the phone telling me we have a kid from Emporia that got picked up as a runaway that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, which is more important?
Yeah. Or, you know, when things like this happen, one thing that's very important to remember is only do what you can do, because injuries do result after this type of an event. I mean, just because when the tree blew over on your house or whatever the case may be, or blew over in your backyard, you're out there with a chainsaw trying to clean it up. There are accidents that happen in the process of this. There are trip fall hazards. There are all kinds of hazards. I mean, your power is cut, but that doesn't mean that you can't get yourself into some problems pretty quickly with trying to clean things up.
I mean, when it's straight up, personally, I would rather the 911 dispatcher be on the phone with the guy who just cut his foot off with a chainsaw than with the guy that is complaining that his power isn't back on yet. Straight up, they're going to get to you.
Well, and it takes it full circle back to what I said initially, was that it's in times like these when we realize what we have.
Yes.
And it's important that in times like these we remember the creature comforts that we do have, because back up 100 years, just a century, and not everybody had constant access to power. Not everybody had the type of amenities that we have today. I mean, that's 1920s. Okay, so we had started to turn the corner on that, but back up 150 years and refrigeration didn't exist.
Yeah, you had to go down to the corner grocery.
Yeah. I mean, and even then, it wasn't refrigerated. Yeah. You didn't get to be able to open up your nice cold refrigerator.
You're hoping that your ice from the winter is lasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you think about it, it's just important that when times like this and we lose the comforts, because really that's what it is. It's not a necessity to live. It's a comfort, that we're grateful for them. When you go open up that refrigerator, maybe it's the time to say, man, thanks somebody that you're able to have refrigeration, that you're able to keep your food cold, that you're able to have the internet, that you're able to flick on the television and watch it, that you're able to sit in a warm or a cool environment, or have a nice iced tea or a nice iced glass of lemonade or water.
And while all of that is going on, just be thankful that you can go down to the library and have a bowl of ice cream anyway, right?
Yeah. Speaking of bowls of ice cream in the library, good transition, Jed.
Thank you.
I went to the Walk Roll Harvey County Ice Cream Social. I had planned on doing it, and even after the storm and stuff, it was still just important enough for me to be able to get down there, because I'd never been down there before. I had made a few suggestions to individuals that are participatory in that, but not directly, right? So they had suggested to me, well, the next time they have a meeting, go down there and just say, a couple of the things that you'd like to suggest, because those are really good ideas. Some of the things that I suggested, which were not completely original thought, right? I mean, they were original to myself, and I hadn't heard them being professed before. And I made that clear. I said, hey, I've got some great ideas, but they don't mean they're my ideas. It's not like somebody else didn't before have these ideas, but it was had to do with our bike path. So some of the things that were talked about was the fact that everybody is biting their fingernails, hoping and praying that we'll get this grant funding to be able to extend the bike path.
Right.
And then I even, when we were talking about it on the program before, I was just thinking about all the things that I knew and was elated if, there was a possibility for this to happen. But this organization really knows in depth how important this is to our community for any kind of, pedestrian, bicycle, skateboarding, whatever it is you choose to use, including individuals that have limited mobility and are those that need to utilize some kind of an electric scooter or something of that nature for them to get where they need to go just to buy groceries. And not to be long-winded in this, but there were some people that were talking about stories of individuals who just trying to get down the sidewalk had taken a turn, and that's their only means of transportation to go get groceries at the grocery store. And as they're trying to get home, their groceries are falling out of their cart. And it just came back to the conversation that we had months ago about the importance of sidewalks being in good quality, how important sidewalks are to our community. And even though there are times in which the city comes along and tells you, hey, you need to do something here with the sidewalk, and it's an inconvenience and the whole thing there really is a greater purpose. There's a greater purpose that's served to individuals who are utilizing these as a thoroughfare, where otherwise they wouldn't have any way to go. Plus, the dangers of, in some instances, not all, because there are safe places to do this, but you don't just want somebody running down the road in their cart going to the grocery store in the street. I mean, that doesn't bode well. I mean, there was even things brought up about people in the past, and it just, I mean, once them thinking juices got going, Chad, and we were bringing stuff up, I mentioned something that just broke my heart the other day, and it was that I was driving down Old 81, and it was out by Dollar General, and I saw an individual that had to have been in their 80s. And they were trying to manage a Dollar General cart with groceries down the side of Old 81 to be able to get across to the North Newton area, where I'm assuming they were in the housing over there that is for lower income individuals. And I forget what's Newton Housing Authority, I think is technically what it is. But there are so many places in our community where we need to have some improvements.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we just need to, Chad. But you know more about this Walker Harvey County than me.
You mentioned Old 81.
Yeah.
And one of the dumbest things, and also the smartest things that I have done in the last 5 years, is I decided to take a Saturday morning and run from my house, which is over by North Dillon's, that's the area I live, to Heston. And I took Old 81 to do that. And, it was actually before they redid the road. So it's been a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what. I still today shake my head that I was dumb enough to do that. And that hold amazement that I lived through the process.
Yeah, because there's no shoulder there.
There was nothing. Mm-mm. There was nothing. Now, it's better than it was.
Yeah.
But it is not. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it again.
Well, people have been killed on some of these roads, Chad.
Well, of course. And you've got cyclists that go across the country on the Trans-America Trail, and we've had a couple of those folks killed. In the last, say 15 years, just because those roads are not set up for anything other than a car. No.
Yeah,
and I really mean that. The semis don't belong on those roads. But there's nothing but cars belong on those roads.
And I'm a firm believer. Go ahead, Chad.
So Walker Harvey, one of their things is they want to see a extension of the path, and that path has multiple names now. Okay, at one time it was called the Trail of Two Cities. Yeah. Sand Creek Trail. Well, but there is a specific piece of this that is the Sand Creek Trail.
Yeah.
A very specific piece that was built to be the Sand Creek Trail. So, and then, you can call it whatever, the walk and bike path, we call it a number of different things.
Yeah.
Walker Harvey would like to see that thing extended ultimately from Newton, but it's budgetarily it's more likely that we're looking from North Newton to Heston.
Yeah.
And that would probably need to be done in the railroad right-of-way that's there. And, that's all messy. That's the K&O Railroad that operates on that.
Yeah.
A lot of what they operate on is actually Union Pacific Rail. So I haven't done a lot of work to figure out who it is at the base of that thing. But you're talking about railroad right-of-ways, and that's always an interesting thing to dip yourself into.
Yeah. Okay. And speaking of this, Jeff,
but they talked about that. But these guys created the master bike plan for the city of Newton.
Mm-hmm. All these things are starting to sound familiar. Let me go through this list, okay? Because if you ever do attend one of these meetings, I'll tell you the people there are amazing.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
I took my little Timmy there, and of course, it was some ice cream. Throw some ice cream on a 2-year-old and see what happens. It's almost like winding them up and let them go. And they were very kid friendly. He ran around.
He was probably a celebrity, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was fine to be there. I mean, he was doing what they want people to do, which is walk.
Active transportation.
But I'd have to say I'm elated by this, Chad, because they were very welcoming. Everybody was there. I mean, I was new, fresh, never been there before, and felt like I could make suggestions, and I felt like it was a very educational opportunity for me. They did a very good job. The chair of that, I can't recall his name. I apologize. Is that his name?
Yeah, Dana Shiflett.
Yeah, and yes, that's right. And awesome. He did a good job of speaking to the crowd, so that way maybe those that don't come or don't know the full backstory on it, he broke that down. And then something I thought was very interesting after the presentation was just a question was posed. What would you like to see? And I just want to go real quick and talk about some of the things and the ideas that had come up from this organization group of people. Not to say that this will all happen, but that your voice matters. When I went there, I knew that my suggestions and my voice mattered, that it was documented, written down, and that there was an action plan to try to see what we could do to move some of this stuff forward. Sand Creek trail lighting was one of them. Best bike routes to school. I know that you were talking about the plan of being able to have that. Murals on bridges, crosswalks, retaining walls, open creek, and kayaks. I don't know if anybody remembers, but there used to be there's a wonderful landing right on Sand Creek.
Correct.
To the what would it be? The Southeast 3rd Street, maybe. It's right basically where Athletic Park is. Throw a stone across the creek, and then there's a place where you can put kayaks in the water. Right. You can put whatever and be able to do that.
And the guy who lives next to that at one time was renting out kayaks.
Yeah. I mean, so we have a nice creek. You don't see a lot of water craft on it, obviously, but it's only
about 4 feet deep. So
yeah. Well, paddle boats.
Yeah.
A little paddle boat is interesting, and just kind of got my brain going. A Dollar General sidewalk was one, to be able to allow for transfer from Dollar General, which is the closest retailer to North Newton.
And that whole stretch there of Old 81, it really needs some attention.
Yeah.
Huge. Well, I mean, we do have an elementary school right there.
Yeah.
And it needs some attention for active transportation.
Yeah, active transportation. Painted crosswalks, promote trail to be able to then promotion of the trail, to be able to have different times where there's mile markers and distances that you've gone. There was a little bit of question about uneven sidewalks, as though, that's a continuing thing.
It will always be a thing, yes.
Let's see here. Talking about walking groups, being able to have times in which people can sign up to know that there's going to be a group of individuals that will be walking from one end of Sand Creek to the, let's say you go from Athletic Park to Centennial Park and back, or whatever the case may be. So that way there can be some camaraderie and some fellowship with other individuals. Very forward thinking. And then also the potential for some fitness equipment along the Sand Creek. So when you come up, something similar that was explained was kind of like what Newton NMC just did.
Yeah, and I've done that NMC thing in a number of times. It's actually pretty cool. Yeah. And when you're done, it can be a pretty good workout.
Yeah, and that's on a loop. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I mean, when you're talking about jogging a little bit, doing a little bit of exercise, jogging a little bit, doing a little bit of exercise, and just so forth, for anybody that's wanting to get a good physical body workout done, that's a place that can be done.
Yeah. And that trail, I don't think folks understand how awesome that trail is.
Yeah.
And we were very, very close. The bugaboo was always going to be finding volunteers that are willing to be there. every Saturday morning, but we were very close to hosting the second park run in the state of Kansas, and that would have been all on the Sand Creek Trail.
So you would just start running from
the start was probably they worked on a number of different routes, but the route that kept coming back was to start up by the dog park in Centennial Park,
okay,
and head south towards into Newton, and I think the turnaround was probably going to be somewhere around Ash Street Park.
Okay.
And then the finish would have been at the same point that you started at. The thing that is that was the challenge was volunteers, and then on the route part of it, when you're trying to plan something like that, we're talking about an international organization, and they've got some rules. And one of them is that it has to occur in a park because it's called a park run or a walk. They do walks too. And that the trail is considered a nonlinear park. The whole thing is considered a nonlinear park. So, the park part was not a problem. They, however, were insistent that it had to be certified that runners and traffic didn't mix. You couldn't, every 5K that has been hosted in this town for the last, I don't know, however many years, almost every single one of them has done the exact same thing, which is the start and finish in Athletic Park, and it's on the street in Athletic Park. Well, that ain't going to work for a park run. Yeah. Because traffic and runners shall not mix.
Well, they shouldn't. It doesn't usually work out very well if there's something that happens to have to happen.
It does not. And that's why, if you go back far enough, if you go back to the old Chisholm Trail Festival, for example, there were a number of years where they had a 5K that actually started at the hospital, came north. Well, man, that's all mingled with traffic.
Yeah.
They had to shut streets down and do all of that fun stuff.
Logistical nightmare.
It finished in Athletic Park. It was a good run, and the post-run breakfast was incredible, and it was great. But to everything their season, I guess.
Yeah.
There's been some fundraising runs that have been done out at Camp Hawk. That's one of those places, but even these guys don't talk about a whole lot.
Yeah.
There's ways to do it.
Yeah. But even then, there was a talk during this about extending the sidewalk from where it currently is to go all the way out to the outlet mall. So then it could be crossed over, and then obviously Camp Hawk could be included.
Right. In that. And see, those folks have that understanding. You've heard me say it before, that just because there's no place that you can put something that everybody can walk to doesn't mean that there's an excuse to put it where no one can.
Yeah.
And the reason that's important is extending that out to the outlet mall is a part of removing that idea.
Yeah.
And it's a part of removing the idea of not everybody can walk there.
Yeah. But then you think ride a bike. If you're a cyclist, okay, it's quite likely that you would be able to ride a bike from, let's say, the outlet mall, or quite possibly
straight
Camp
up,
Hawk, all the way through town.
If you're a cyclist, you can get just about anywhere you want to go.
Yeah.
The question is, can you do it safely?
I'm not so convinced.
And there's a reason that this group, one of the very first things that they did, if you drive around in the county, and if you do that on any part of the Transamerica Trail, you're going to see the signs 3 feet.
Yeah, they did that, by the way.
They did that.
Yeah.
That was about cyclist safety.
Yeah.
Okay, and the law does say you need to give them 3 feet. Guess what, folks? That means on Main Street, K15, downtown Newton, even right now in construction, you're supposed to be giving those bicycles 3 feet.
Yeah.
And right now in downtown Newton, and a lot of it's really, really faded, and I can't wait for it to just be faded to the point where it's no longer there, you will see No bicycles painted on the sidewalks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know why that happened. I know why it's there.
You have a pedestrian.
There was a pedestrian accident.
Yeah.
It was outside of a bank.
Somebody
came walking out of the bank, and there was somebody coming on a bike. Boom. And you know what? That's not as bad as getting hit by a car, but it ain't no fun.
Yeah.
Okay? And cyclists and runners and walkers have long struggled in coexisting. Okay? They just do.
Yeah.
And we're forced to share space.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a struggle.
Well, and I'll say this, as much as I utilize the Sand Creek walking path, or I would say that that relationship is good.
It is good. Right now, this time of year is the time of year where I complain a lot about the noobs. You know, and I've had this conversation in the Walk Roll Harvey meetings. And I'm very specific about it when I say I complain about the noobs. And we all know who the noobs are. The noobs are the ones that, oh, it's a beautiful day, I think I'm going to go for a bike ride.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is the only time of year that they think about it or even do it. You know, and in some cases, you know, they've run down to Wally's and bought a bike, and, you know, they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know how to coexist with others. They just don't.
Well,
they
you know,
don't
you
get
slow
it.
down,
and you know, and then on
the person walking or running.
and the other side of that, when I talk about the noobs, right? I'm also talking about the noob runner and the noob walker. It's like all of a sudden the weather is nice. Okay, I'm going to go do this. I haven't worked out at all for months and months and months, so I'm going to go do this. Okay, they also don't know how to coexist.
You
right?
mean you're not supposed to just walk down the middle of the sidewalk?
There's that. There's that.
I love it.
Here's the other one. This is the one that drives me absolutely nuts. And keep in mind, I'm the runner and walker. Okay? Wearing earbuds and full earphones, that is a huge no-no.
Yeah, because you can't hear somebody coming up from behind you going,
so when the cyclist is coming up and they're saying, I'm coming on your left, I'm coming on your left, you can't hear them.
Yeah.
And so you don't acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And then you're shocked out of your mind when they're right here.
Yeah. When they go buzzing by you.
And honestly, this was one I had to learn for myself. So full earbud, anything that is fully covering your ear, boy, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, you need the bone shakers. That's what I call them. Okay? They're called bone conducting headphones. They don't go on your ear.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can't turn them all the way up. You've got to be able to hear. You got to be able to coexist. When you hear coming on your left, raise your left hand. Let them know you heard you. Okay, so the noobs, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
This is the time of year they're all out.
Yeah. Don't be noob haters, Chad. Are you noob hating?
I'm not noob hating. I'm hoping to noob educate.
Noob educate.
I want to noob educate.
I mean, all right.
And so runners, walkers, okay, make sure you can hear, and make sure that you acknowledge when someone is making their presence known.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it. Let them know that you know.
Yeah.
Cyclists, let us know you're there.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason this is all about the noobs is that it's the newbies, quite honestly, who break that rule.
Yeah. Well, they don't know that there's that proper etiquette, Chad.
Well, right, wrong, or indifferent, they just don't. They don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I have to. Man, I have to settle myself sometimes because I don't want to hear some stupid bell. I don't care about your bell.
Yeah.
Your bell, all it does is tell me you're behind me.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm a slow son of a gun, so I know you're going to go around me. Your bell only tells me that you're behind me. It doesn't tell me if you're going to go left. It doesn't tell me if you're going to go right. And when I'm running right along the right side of the path, I figure you're probably going to go left.
Yeah.
But when you're ringing that stinking bell and then you come flying around me on the right side and there's no room between me and you at all, I got a problem.
Well, and that's interesting that you say that, because the minute that you did say that, in my mind's eye remembers on countless occasions, because that does get congested. I mean, around this time of year, you do walk up and down that path, and you probably are not going to, from the time that you're passing somebody, you can see somebody else coming. Right? So there are times when I know that I'm going one way, some pedestrians are coming the other. If a bicycle's coming up behind you, then they'll go to your right. They'll go off the trail to your right.
They're going to go wherever they can get around you.
To keep going. And so that in and of itself has at times, I've almost, when I've heard a bicycle come up, try to get over to the right, but they're going to the right anyway, because I was moving over so they could pass me because there was people coming, and there is that potential to have a catastrophe.
And I'm a runner.
Yeah.
And I pass walkers.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll do it to the left and to the right.
And so I'm just, as I'm coming up, I'm voicing. I'm coming up on your left. I'm coming up on your left. And the folks that drive me nuts are the ones that absolutely do not acknowledge it. And the ones that drive me even further nuts are the ones that I've been, I'm not very fast, but I am coming around you.
Yeah.
And so I've been telling you, I'm coming on your left. I'm going to be coming around you on your left. Let me tell you, even if I'm wasting my breath while I'm running, boy, I'll tell you, that's no good.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming on your left. I'm coming on your left. I'm coming on your left. And I think it's really sweet that you and your wife are holding hands.
Yeah.
But I'm coming on your left. Yeah. By the way, it's really great that you're holding hands. I'm coming on your left.
Yeah. Taking up
I need you to do two things. I need you to acknowledge that you've heard me. I need you to make room for me. Because when I'm on the Sand Creek path, it's not wide. Yeah. 2 people and it's full.
Yeah.
I need you to make room for me, and then I need you to not jump out of your ever-loving skin when I actually do what I'm telling you I'm going to do.
I just thought about something totally unrelated but related but funny. And I was thinking about rules, and I was thinking about we're talking about proper etiquette. One time, and it just blew my mind. I'm walking down the bike path, and here comes somebody on a dirt bike. I'm not kidding you, Chad. I'm not kidding you.
You're talking motorized?
Actual dirt bike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, of course they see me and they shut it down real quick, and then they get off of it and they're pushing it. And I said, I'm not going to call the police on you or nothing like that. But man, if they catch you down here on a motorcycle, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah. And I don't know if you know that, but I'm just letting you know. And it looks to me like there are all kinds of people on this path right now watching you and wondering what you're doing. And he goes, I'm sorry. I had no idea that this. And I'm thinking, how could you not have any idea? But hey, you know what? I mean, I guess when you're trying to get from one part of town to the other on a motorized dirt bike, and it was a small dirt bike, right? Without a tag. And
Boy, it keeps getting worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's like okay, yeah, I see why you're doing what you're doing, but you're going to get into trouble, man. And this thing is noisy. And worst case scenario, I mean, I laugh about it, but worst case scenario, I mean, imagine getting into a pedestrian. I mean, there are so many people that do the same thing I do, which is put their little tiny baby in a stroller and they head out on the bike path because they know that's a safe place to walk. There are so many people, kids, dogs, the whole thing, you name it. And speaking of dogs, there are places to pick up what your dog leaves behind. So, so speaking of rules.
So do I need to put one of those things in my front yard? Yeah.
It's always enjoyable.
You mentioned dogs. True story. This is hilarious. I told my wife this story last night, and she just rolled in laughter. So, I haven't eaten lunch yet this week. I've been skipping lunch every day because dude, people are doing storm cleanup, and if my role is to get your lunch to you hot, great, I'm going to do that. Yeah. And so I had a delivery, and it was in a cul-de-sac, and I did what I'm always supposed to do. I put it on the front porch, just like the person had requested, and took a picture of it, and sent the picture off, and marked it as all complete. Just everything was fine, just as it was requested to be done. And then I go up the street, turn around in the cul-de-sac. It tells me that I've got another delivery pending, and I'm hitting that. And I come back, and the person had not picked up their food yet, but the neighbor's dog had the bag.
Oh no! Oh no!
So I was like, oh no! Oh no!
Come here, puppy!
Yeah. And I was yelling as loud as I could. Oh no! Oh no! And that darn dog just looked at me, dropped the bag, and ran hard into the yard across the street. I got out of the car, grabbed the bag. I walk up to the house. They still haven't come out.
You could be a homeless dog.
They still haven't come out.
Yeah.
And, ring the doorbell, and young man gets to the door, and I look at him, and I say, hey, I just want you to know, your neighbor's dog tried to take your meal. Didn't get into the bag, but he tried to take it. Okay? And he just kind of smiled, and I said it. I said, Freddy's burgers are pretty good.
Yeah. And they smell good.
And they smell pretty good. and that dog... That dog was fixing to.
I wonder how many times that happens. You could be a homeless dog in the community.
I don't know, but I was kind of like, dude.
Get you a meal.
I was just kind of like, dude. Anybody that ends up with a knock on them because they quote didn't deliver, it's like, I wonder.
Could have been a dog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was kind of a funny deal.
Yeah. No. Okay. So another thing I wanted to cover on the program for everybody, and it talks about rules and whatnot, and it's coming up rather quickly. The Harvey County elections put out a social media post that just wanted to remind everybody of some important dates when it comes to the primary election. On June 3rd is the deadline to change your party affiliation. July 16th, voter registration deadline. You can't vote after that. You can do a preliminary ballot, but your voter registration deadline is then. July 23rd, early voting begins, which is at the courthouse. July 30th, the deadline to request a mail-in ballot is, you can't do it after that for those that want to be able to get a mail-in ballot sent to them and then be able to vote from their home. August 5th, early voting ends at noon, and then, of course, August 6th is Election Day. Now, I want to clarify something. Although June 3rd is the deadline to change your party affiliation, which means that if you're of a specific party, you cannot vote in the other party's primary election. If you happen to be an unaffiliated voter, you can go into the courthouse up into voting day.
Yes.
Say that you would like to vote in the Republican primary, that at that point in time, they will allow you to declare a party affiliation and you can vote. So even though the deadline to change party affiliation, meaning from Democrat to Republican, Republican to Democrat, Libertarian on through, if you are an unaffiliated voter, you can technically, when you go in there, change your party affiliation to either Republican or Democrat and vote in their primary. Now, I will say this. As to date, there's only one, from what I understand, Democrat who has filed to run in any of the elections here in Harvey County that Harvey County residents can vote for.
Correct.
So, and June 3rd rolls around.
Is that state representative or state senate?
State senate. State senate. So now things might change, but until June 3rd rolls around, if you happen to be affiliated with the Democrat Party and there happens to be nobody else that files, then you're not even able to vote in a primary.
Right. Now, yes, and June 3rd is also the deadline to vote to file as a candidate.
That's correct.
I did notice that there's been a few more precinct filings.
Okay.
In the last week or so. Yeah, just a few more. June 3rd is the deadline for those.
Is that just really, is nobody filing for this stuff, Chad? Because normally the precinct committee people's roles are somewhat filled, at least for the Republican Party.
Well, I saw somebody at lunch yesterday that I haven't seen in a while. A former Board of Education member, and we got to talking a little bit. And I can remember the year, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I can remember the year where I went down to the courthouse on filing day, on the deadline day, and they were there. And they were standing there with their paperwork. And they looked right at me and said, I don't know if I want to do this or not. And that particular year, the deadline was straight up noon. You had to have it done by noon on that day. And I just kind of looked at him and I said, well, you only got about 10 minutes to decide. They sat in a chair and just watched the clock. And at 11:59, because no one else had come,
they did it.
They turned their paperwork in.
This cannot be the nature of politics, Chad. You're depressing me. I know that politics can be somewhat unbecoming, but for crying out loud, this is how we make a change in our community.
I am
There's
well
no
aware.
other way to do it.
I am well aware.
If you don't go out and you don't vote, you don't register and vote, and then you decide, well, I'm registered and vote, but I'm not going to go vote in the primary, and we get a 30% turnout, that is why we have the major problems that we have with partisan politics in our community.
And I'm just going to let you know
nationally
that I'm not going to be available on June 3rd.
So you're going to go do it early?
No, my decision. I'm going to have to make my decision early.
Okay. I'm trying, Chad. I'm trying, my man.
I have to make my decision early. And as I talked about earlier, I'm weird, man. I'm more than willing to go down to the courthouse and re-register as a Democrat and become a precinct person.
Yeah, because right now
just because they have nobody. They have nobody.
Yeah, and if you want a voice,
and they didn't have anybody in my precinct in the last election. Now the Republicans did have somebody in my precinct in the last election. They have not refiled. I don't know if they're going to.
I don't know either. I'm starting to be confused by.
I don't know. Should I pick up the phone and call them and ask? I don't know, but
maybe you just go file for it.
Well, but I don't. I really don't want to do that.
I don't want to say anything negative about the Democrat Party in our community, but I really struggle with the understanding that in many, many, many cases, the Republican Party has people to vote for. I don't think that there's been an election in the last 20 years. But then again...
No, it doesn't go back that far.
But then again, we can even say this. There's only two races of all the races that I can think of at this point in time that are contested.
Yeah, we're lacking contested races. And that's both the primary and the general. We're lacking contested races. And I don't have any ill will towards anybody. I just feel like we need choices.
Yeah.
And I wrote a pretty in-your-face editorial after the last go-round where everything was decided in the primaries.
Yep.
And I know, because I've talked to some of those people, how that it really, really angered members of the Democratic Party. And you know what? You should be mad. You should not feel good about the local newspaper editor calling you a colossal failure, which is what I did.
Yeah.
Be mad. Seriously, be mad. Okay?
But do something about it.
Thank you. And so here we're sitting, we're like, when this posts, we're only a week and a half away.
Yeah.
And you've got someone who filed for Senate 31.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got 2 county commission spots open. Okay, or on the ballot, I should say. We got 2 county commission spots that are on the ballot. We got county sheriff, we got county attorney, we got county treasurer. we got races.
Well, so I correct myself. There's 3 because the treasurer has...
and the 2 county commissioners,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Will have primaries.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we need some people.
Yeah. But what is it? And I just got to ask. Now, I might be able to answer my own question because I know full well all the things that I've gone through when endeavoring to just be part of the process, stand up, file, and run for election. And at times it can be awful, brutal. Just, it is, I want to call it the nature of the beast. But that should not be a reason why people refrain from wanting to be participatory in the process. It's never stopped me.
Well, there's a number of things. There's a fear of losing.
So you lose.
But there's also a fear of winning.
So you win. I mean, think about this.
Because if you win, now you've got responsibility, man. I mean, take a look at the county commission as a perfect example. You got a meeting every week.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of responsibility. The county commission and our state legislators, that does have a lot of responsibility.
You win the just pick one. You win the treasurer's race, for example.
That's a full-time job.
Yeah, that is. That is a job.
Yeah.
Now, it is a salaried position. I'm going to be very blunt. It is a salaried position. County, any one of those county positions.
Full-time job.
Are salaried positions.
Yeah.
And that can cut one of 2 ways. If you're like me, it means that you're going to work like a dog and you're going to work a lot. Okay? Because you're always going to be feeling like you need to be working.
Yeah.
If you're not like me, you will do that job with the least amount of time possible. You're not paid by the hour. Yeah. You're paid to do the job. Meet your goals, go home.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And there are times, I'll be straight, there are times, that's how I do my job. Meet my goals, go home.
Because there are times in which but it goes both ways. That's the nature of the salary position.
So they're salaried positions.
There's times where you might be working 80 hours in a week, and if you're working 80 hours in that week, then you have to have the self-discipline to turn around and work 10 hours the following week to be able to I mean, because Chad, the worst thing that ever happened to me was that I got put into a salary position one time when I was a district manager. And the reason why I say that is because, well, there's no end. There's always work to be done. And so I found myself working literally 80, and I'm not kidding you, man, 80 to 90 hours a week, just every week, week in, week out, 2 years of just I'm not somebody that can leave a job undone. And that's the nature of the beast.
When I applied to become a juvenile intake worker on the side, because that's what it is, and it's an on-call position, I was asked, how is this going to work because you have a full-time plus job? My response was, my full-time plus job over at the Newton Kansan is a salaried position. I have goals I have to meet. Once I've met my goals, I'm done. I do not have an obligation. I mean, that's the way that works.
Yeah.
Okay? They've set out the goals. I go meet them. And then I can do what I need to do for me.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, a tornado rips through town. Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of work.
Yeah.
I say this, I don't think people believe me, but this is the God's honest truth. The day of the Heston shooting at XL Industries, I worked a 40-hour shift.
Yeah.
Not a 40-hour week, a 40-hour shift. I was pretty tired at the end of that. But there was that much that needed to be done. We as a publication got caught with our pants down, quite honestly. Because while we had some staff, they were all really, really green. I love those people dearly. Still do. They were all really green. And, as a manager, my job, in part, is to match people with their strengths.
Yeah.
And, none of the stuff that was going on during that time were those folks. That was not their strengths. That was not where they, when I say they were green, I had a playwright who was just getting her feet wet in journalism. Still love her. Always will. She's one of the greatest humans on the planet. I had a reformed sports reporter. That's what we'll call it, right? I had hired a guy who was that was a sports reporter that had kind of looked at me and said, I think I can do news for a while until something in sports opens up. So he's just getting his feet wet. Still love the guy. He's gone on to great things. He really has. But that's who I had, and I'm sitting there going, these are not the folks that, and part of what I had to evaluate was the emotional makeup of the human I'm looking at, right? I was being very fatherly. And I'm like, these are not the people that need to be on the ground in Heston right now. I'm the person that needs to be on the ground in Heston right now. And if stories come up that they are well suited for, then I'm going to stick them on it. Okay? And that is in turn why I worked that 40-hour shift. Those folks lived out the Newton/Harvey County ethos very, very well. The one that we talked about today, because those folks basically said, I know I have a role to play. What's it gonna be?
Yeah.
I will go in here and I will do this. What's my role going to be? Oh, and I had another guy that I had hired. I literally hired him off the street. When I offered him a job, he thought I was joking. And just trying to figure, and I'm like, I think you're ready for it. I need you to get over to the courthouse and deal with the Noctegal case. And he ate it up, and he did a great job. Okay? And then, I'm looking at the playwright and saying, what you've been giving me, that's what I need. Okay? We need those other things that are not Heston.
Yeah.
We need those things. Okay?
Yeah.
Just because this thing has occurred in our town doesn't mean that we only pay attention to it. Yeah. We have,
other things.
We have other things, right?
Yeah.
I had Mark Schnabel standing there going, what do you need from me? I'm like, I need you to keep covering the sports, dude. We're still going to have sports pages to fill.
Yeah.
I need you to keep doing that. And Mark has always done that. He's always been, what can I do?
Done a rock star job, too.
Yeah. The day that they started canceling all the sports because of COVID, he walked into my office and he said, I need a job, man. What can I do? I need to help. I need to start doing some news. Do you need me to do county commission? Do you need me to school board? What is it you need me to start doing? And he and I mapped out what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And, as luck would have it, he still figured out how to put together sports pages in the middle of that.
Right.
Yeah. So everybody played their own role. They didn't turtle and say, well, I guess nobody needs anything. No.
Yeah.
We need it. And they figured out what to do. And forever grateful. And I don't know where that whole conversation started now because I've forgotten, but
yeah. No. I needed to hear what you said.
I think it's just, it's just that, salaried employee.
Yeah.
I did that 40-hour shift because it's what's needed to be, and it's the only time I've ever done anything like that.
Yeah.
In Newton.
All right, Chad. We are coming to the end of the program. I'm just going to tell everybody that if you like my do and you think I look fancy, free, and fine, then you need to go down to the haircutting company and have Shannon make sure and get you taken care of, because she took care of me. That's where I go to get my hair cut. I like the fact that I go in there and she knows what I want and every single time it looks the same because I'm a person of consistency. So I like to look the same way every time. But
I'm going to see her next week.
All right. So that's your final word, Chad, is you're going to see her next week? What's your final word, my man? To speak directly to the hearts and the minds of everybody listening, Chad, what do you got for me?
I'm going to go on vacation. That's not a vacation, but I'm looking forward to it. So, just behave for that week.
Who, me?
No, everybody. I mean, everybody,
I was going to say, you want to come back to a ship that's floated,
everybody,
right?
Yeah.
Or a house that's not burned down.
Yeah, exactly.
Let Lance go 1 week by himself and woo, there's nothing left to come back to.
I mean, you know that you're not going to be by yourself, but I'm just saying to the community, we've gone through something pretty rough and somewhere along the line now, and we keep doing it. Let's take a break. Let's take a breathe. And oh, by the way, be really excited because the 31st Hillsboro Industries is going to break ground.
And I'll be there for that, Chad.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. We'll catch you next week, everybody. Enjoy your week.